Jennifer is our featured guest here, and before we turn the platform over, I'd like to just quickly go around the room and introduce ourselves. We'd like to take about 7 minutes for this at max, because we want to start at quarter after the hour to give her full allotted time for us. So, Bob, I know I interrupted you, so tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been married for 40 years, so that's key to battle, right? But what I tell everybody, been married 40 years, but gone to marriage counseling for 41. So, no, I'm a vet from, I got out of the service, I can't remember, 1971, 72. I run a social media company. I've been doing that for maybe 30 years at this point. I got a staff of people that work for me. And we're always looking for more participants, helping them grow their businesses. That's, so many people are retired military, but I always said idle hands are the devil's workshop. So most people go back to work, doing something. And as I've mentioned in other group meetings, my daughter has a doctorate in psychology, and she worked for the VA for several years. And she also mentioned it was one of the most difficult jobs she ever had. So, and the reason for that is all the attempted suicides that she had to deal with. And, listen, we're here to help each other, I think, at the end of the day. So she lasted a couple years doing that, but it just overwhelmed her, and now she's in her own private practice and doing extremely well. But it's always payback that we have, right? Isn't that our
Right.
lives? Payback
Right.
to others for stuff that we've done for this. Now we get this weekend, we get a lot of people saying thank you for your service because of Memorial Day. And then, of course, coming up, Veterans Day is another aspect of it. And as Dennis, I'll turn it back over to you. You
All
talk about the ultimate price.
right. Well, in brief, my name is Dennis Schroeder. I'm a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel. Served 24 years as a medical service corps officer from 1978 to 2000, and then 2011 to 2013. I live in Middle Tennessee, and I started the Price of Freedom Foundation, a nonprofit that is dedicated to collecting, preserving, and telling the complete life stories of our comrades who didn't make it home. And that's what I'm about, and that's what we're believing in telling the stories, and we want this forum to be able to have our fellow veterans who are living to tell their stories, and that's what I'm so happy that our featured guest is going to be doing for us here shortly. So let's go to David.
Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at. I'm David Carter, retired in April 2021 after 34 and a half years in the Navy. Retired as a Force Master Chief for Information Warfare. Spent most of my career in Virginia, but obviously being Navy, been all over the world, a couple times over. My wife of this Sunday will be 34 years we've been married. We moved down to Dunlap, Tennessee, so we're not too far from you, Dennis, I don't think, if we're on the outskirts of Middle Tennessee down here, out in Chattanooga. Been here for about 3.5 years or so, and originally post-Navy job was working for a VA specialty lender, teaching vets and service members about their benefits, but I started a small business, the Old Tar Woodworker, a couple of years ago, and it kind of took off where the mortgage industry was taking a dump, and so I went full time into my small business, and I get to build things and make sawdust, and life is good. So
Excellent.
that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, David. Tony.
Tony Riggs out of Phoenix, Arizona. I feel like the young guy in here. I've been married only 32 years. 34, 40. I got some catching up to do. I served in the Marine Corps from 89 to 95. I am an entrepreneur for 25 years. I have several businesses. I'm a huge veteran advocate. I try to help out where I can. I have several businesses. All my kids have businesses. So I like just living life, having fun, and smiling.
Cool. Well, welcome. Thank you. Duke.
Good day, y'all. My name is Duke Birch. I'm a retired Army veteran. I am falling even under you guys. I've been married 10 years, but I've known my wife since we were 13, and we kind of 20 years of life away, and then got back together there, have two wonderful kids. Truly live by the some guys have their better 50, their better half. I got my better 90%. I don't know where I'd be without her. She literally saved my life. And that's about it. Busy trying to start a business, and that's about it. So if I look like my eyes like a fox or another small game that's been caught in a trap or cornered, that's why I'm trying to get everything done.
All right.
So
Excellent.
Duke, what's the business you're working on starting up?
I actually bought a new domain today. I went through with a marketer, and I had called it Traveled Way With, which any of you that did any recon understand what Traveled Way With is. It's widening things to allow for all traffic and combat operations to flow through. I thought it was really catchy. It's not. And the acronym TWW is kind of a pain in the ass to say. So I prayed on it quite a bit. Me and my wife talked about it again, wisest person in my house, and with some friends. And it is now called FMTH, and that stands for Free Market Talent Hub.
Excellent.
And it dictates what we got. My talent ambassador system, the business model I'm doing that's bringing some new. That's about it.
So you're recruiting.
No, I don't want to be identified as recruiting. We are a hub for placement. Yes, there is some recruiting going on in there, but my company does no recruiting.
Okay.
My company is the spokes on the wheel of the hub to allow for anybody in the United States, veteran or not veteran, to be a talent ambassador for the company and submit people to me. It is placement. There's definite overlap to submit to the candidate, and if they get hired, they get a very large chunk of my fee to the company for the placement fee. It's a crowdsourcing recruiting, democratizing recruiting. I've got a lot of different taglines and things like that that we're working with. That's all.
All right.
So,
excellent. Well,
thank
I
you, sir.
appreciate that. We're at our time now. I'd like to introduce our featured speaker, Jennifer Ware, even though the screen has her as my name, but Jennifer, we're going to hand this over to you. And I think, Bob, if you've got this recorded on speaker view, that'll be best so that the recording will show what she'll be showing with her screen. All right. Jennifer, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to ask one other thing for everybody while Jennifer is telling her story. I don't want you to be distracted, but I am encouraging everybody to put your contact information in the chat, because we do encourage you to make connections outside of this meeting. So, Jennifer, I apologize. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. Well, it's really honored to be here, actually. Usually I'm the one who's asking the stories, so to be on the other end is kind of cool. I was thinking, like, how was I going to say everything that I want to say? And I guess it all starts from, I guess chronologically is usually the easiest to get started here. Well, I was born and raised in Michigan, from the Metro Detroit area. I went to college for music in 1997. And at one point in my college education, I had a Marine recruiter come to our School of Music and did auditions for anyone who wanted to take one. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Let's see what happens. And I ended up passing the audition, but I knew my parents would absolutely murder me if I dropped out of college to go into the Marine Corps. So I always that experience was really great because it exposed me to the idea that there were actually military bands in all the branches of service, and it was a really great way to um, consider a different course of action besides being a music educator. So I went through the rest of my college experience, and I don't know if it was because I decided at that moment that I didn't want to be an educator, but I ended up graduating. But my last year in college, I also was thinking in the back of my mind that I wanted to join the service. And so I had my heart set on the Air Force because they forego advanced training in music because a lot of their musicians are already college graduates. A lot of them have master's and doctorate degrees in music. And so they are a pretty elite group of musicians, and they don't have as many bands in the military as some of the other branches. Uh, anyway, I decided to fly it down to Lackland, took an audition. I was never had taken such a hardcore audition before. I ended up not passing my Air Force audition, but I already had a Army audition lined up the next day when I flew home. So I had a local band liaison come out to my college, and I took audition with the Army, and I ended up getting in right away. And kind of the rest is history. I uh, deferred my enlistment for 3 months after I graduated so that I could start in the fall. So in almost a year to the day, 2002 of 9/11, I was in basic training in September of 2002. We had a huge ceremony. It was my last day in reception and basic training before going to my actual company and starting that process. So it was pretty emotional, having a huge 9/11 ceremony of the year anniversary of that. So, and then also, there was rumblings that war was going to be starting. And so, that was a little scary as well. It was interesting when I was in basic training, they knew what our MOSs were. And so they they were saying, you are going to have to put your flute down and you're going to be picking up your weapon and going to war. So they were trying to prepare us right away. I ended up graduating from basic training in November of 2002, going to the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps joint School of Music. For those three branches of service have their extra training at now is the joint Little Creek Fort Story base out in the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. But at the time it was just Little Creek, and we were on the Navy installation. And so that was our exposure to different branches of service. So I really enjoyed having that. We were trained alongside Navy and Marines musicians as well. And then we had our own Army component on how the Army does things, like marching band and just other nuances that are a little different between the branches. So was there actually I did what everybody says not to do, and I ended up finding a person that I really enjoyed dating. We were going to opposite sides of the world. He was supposed to go to Germany, and I was supposed to go to Fort Lewis, Washington. Somehow people found out that we were dating, and they actually helped us get to the same base, even though they're telling everybody not to do so. We were a little older. He had just turned 30 while were there, and I was 23. So we we had already gone through college. We'd already kind of been away from home. So it wasn't like we were, these 17-year-olds that are away from mom and dad for the first time. So they kind of helped us go to the same base, and we ended up getting stationed at Fort Rucker, Alabama. Spent my active duty service time there. Let's see here if I have some pictures. I actually do have a couple pictures. I just need to find where they're located.
But
think I only have-
were you from Norfolk?
No, I grew up in the Detroit area.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and then my ex-husband now, he's my ex-husband now, he was from Indiana. So we were both from the Midwest. We ended up in Alabama. It was definitely a culture shock. Didn't do a ton of traveling while at Fort Rucker, but we did support the institution up at Redstone Arsenal. So we did a lot of traveling up there. We did a lot of support down in Florida in the Panhandle. And so a lot of it was just marching shows. We did a lot of change of command ceremonies, a lot of aviation graduations from the Warrant Officers School. And so I spent my time down there. My ex-husband wanted to get out of the military because he wanted to pursue a doctorate degree in music. So I ended up coming with him wherever he was going to go to school, and it ended up being in Minnesota. So I decided that I wanted to continue to serve, and I basically left active duty one day, and then the next day I enlisted in the National Guard, Minnesota, and I continued my service with them for 17 years with the 34th Infantry Division Band. So I spent most of my career here in Minnesota, and that's where I live now.
Okay, so most importantly, what instrument did you play?
I play flute, piccolo, and I played a little bit of saxophone while I was in the National Guard Band. I played tenor and alto occasionally, just based on instrumentation, and if they needed somebody to lead a group that they didn't have somebody of that rank. So that's when I switched over instruments a couple times, and so I loved my time in the Minnesota National Guard. We did a lot of amazing things. I think my first gig in the Minnesota National Guard was playing at a Vikings game, and it was not anything compared to what I did in active duty. So I was like, wow, this is really awesome. Like, we do some cool things here. And then I was kind of hooked with some of the missions that we did. The Minnesota National Guard is the 34th Infantry Division, has a really long history dating back to World War II. The band was the first folks off the plane in Italy, and so they were supporting the war efforts at that time. And then we also drove down in charter buses to, I think it was Mississippi, to perform in a deployment ceremony for the 34th when they were the longest deploying military unit at the start of the Iraq War. They served for 18 months, got extended a couple times. I don't know if you all have heard of their time over there, but there was a huge thing that happened with them being like a day short of getting their full GI Bill. And so that was something that leaders had fought for. And I think that they were all able to get that extra day counted so that they could get their benefits. But yes, the 34th deploys a lot. And actually my unit did deploy. I was fortunate enough to be working full-time for the Minnesota National Guard for the first 6.5 years that I was serving. I worked in our joint staff information technology as an analyst and then as a supervisor. And so I was fortunate enough that I did not deploy with my unit when they went to Basra, Iraq in 2009. But the band did deploy, and it wasn't the first time that they have been over there. So lots of recognition to my unit for their years of service. And you wouldn't think that a band would have so much, I guess, combat experience, but they have. So near the end of my career, I ended up staying until 2022. But in 2000, when the Minneapolis riots were here, the governor at one point called everybody up, said, we're going to be deploying all the units to Minneapolis. And I thought, well, I'm in the band. There's no way they're going to call us. But sure enough, because our duty station is super close to Minneapolis. In fact, I live Minneapolis, and actually you can see outside my window. That's downtown. And let me see here. Oh, there we go. There's downtown. But you could see people marching down 35W, which is right over this highway here. And you could see people marching down the street during the riot. So it was pretty crazy because I was right here. Ended up getting called up, and we ended up supporting the efforts. We actually protected paramedics our first night out, 16-hour shift, taking turns overnight in paramedic in ambulances and keeping all of the medics safe because they were being threatened. So it was pretty crazy. And also, I never thought I'd see the day where I was actually armed. So we all were issued ammo, and we all had about 40 rounds and are either M16s or M4s. And we were all downtown Minneapolis armed, ready to take down anyone that threatened the citizens or the medical professionals. So we also protected the hospital downtown and things like that. So it was a very interesting and scary time in my backyard, I guess you could say, at the end of my career. Along the way, so I talked about serving full-time for the National Guard, and that was really awesome. And then it led me to my current job. I do work at the VA. I work in the Debt Management Center. People have thought of us as being not the best part of the VA because of what we do. We assist the Veterans Benefits Administration mostly with repaying back overpayments and compensation, pension, home loan, things like that. However, we've done a lot over the last 10 years, and we've changed the law so that veterans benefit check is not taken in one lump sum. It's spread out automatically over a 3-year time frame for a repayment. And then veterans can also work with us if that doesn't meet their needs to make it even easier for them. So I actually work in human resources now. I used to be an operations manager in our call center, and I really enjoy continuing to serve after retirement. I do have some pictures. I guess I can try to show some pictures that kind of show different parts of my service. Let's see here. For some reason, I can't, gotta move this over. I have like 3 screens up. Hopefully, well, some of them, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see, but I'm gonna have to try to move my camera here. Oh gosh. One moment.
Jennifer,
we
what's
go.
your last name?
It's Ware, W-A-R-E.
Well, that's too easy.
Yeah, so this is a picture of us at that deployment ceremony that I talked about. We were in our old BDU uniform. This is 2006, and we had traveled down to Mississippi to send off our large amount of troops to Iraq. So we did a pass and review in this sequence here, but I'm one of the short piccolo players in the middle there. You might be able to see me.
You know what? Dennis, I'm gonna have to go because I've got my
Understand,
doctor.
Bob. Understand. We'll
appointment.
we'll catch you later, Bob. Thanks so much,
Okay,
and
thanks.
we'll carry on. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Here's a photo of me and my section at, I know it's a little blurry because it's on the computer, but that is when I was at Fort Rucker. So I was only about 24 years old then. Let's see here if I can find any others. One of the great things about my job in when I worked full-time for the National Guard was I got to take photography. And actually, this is a really great story of my late friend, Amy Muller. She deployed with the Air Force to different, I'm trying to think, she was out where there was a lot of burn pit activity. She ended up getting pancreatic cancer at 35 years old and passed away the next year. And it was crazy because she was the one that actually was in charge of developing videos for fallen Minnesota National Guard soldiers. Or in this case, it was, this is one of the last Tuskegee Airmen from Minnesota that was alive. And we were taking pictures of his comrade's funeral. And we made a compilation of pictures and video to send to the family members. And then she ended up being one of those service members that ended up passing away way too soon. The good news is that she knew about those burn pits way before the PACT Act was passed. Her friend was also deployed with her and is one of the main advocates for Burn Pits 360. And they worked with Senator Klobuchar in the Minnesota National Guard, or in Minnesota, I'm sorry, in the Minnesota government to get law changed and to actually pass the PACT Act. So I always commend my friend Amy for being one of the early leaders in that effort before she even passed away. Here's a picture of us outside of, there's a historic airfield in Minnesota. That's Miss Mitchell. It is a historic airplane. Actually flew over one Memorial Day when I was performing after she had passed away, and she's buried at Fort Snelling. It flew over the ceremony and of course brought tears to my eyes because I knew that we had taken this picture together. And so that was pretty special. And we actually went inside the airplane as well. And yeah, so she was one of my best friends.
I hear you, and I thank you for sharing that. It's one of the things that we may not have talked about in our prior communications that we want to give veterans an opportunity to pay tribute to their fallen comrades, and hers is definitely a story that we definitely want to feature and put on our website and our social media. So we can talk about that later. But I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. This is a picture of us before she deployed the second time at a Minnesota Vikings game. We got to take photography together. And so you see that it is like she was in the Air Force and I'm the Army, so we had a joint force headquarters. And so I actually spent a lot of my service time when I worked full time with Air Force personnel. In fact, I will show you a picture of my full-time crew because they're the ones that actually threw my retirement party. And you can see, you can see it, it's a little blurry because of the camera, but I'm second to the right there, but that's my crew of folks, and most of them are Air Force. And then we have my former boss, who is Navy and Air Force. He served in the military for 40 years. I still keep in touch with him. He recently had cancer in his jaw, but he has recovered. And he was a great mentor to me and these ladies. We were called his angels, and his name was Vance, Vinny for short. So we were Vinny's angels. And it was something that was a great friendship amongst a leader and his crew of administration and public affairs related staff members. I guess I'll show you another cool picture. We performed at a firefighter and police memorial ceremony. I was actually a guidon bearer for this. So one of the great things about my job as a military musician is I got to meet a lot of great people. We were the face of the military, especially the National Guard. So I got a lot of cool opportunities to speak with some really high-ranking individuals. I don't think I have the picture up here, but I also, I guess I'll show you a state fair picture. So Minnesota is famous for our state fairs. And here's a picture of us performing Stars and Stripes Forever at one of the Minnesota State Fair ceremonies. And one annual training, we went to a historic theater, and we had this really great picture taken with that American flag in the background. So that was a kind of a cool picture. But most of my photos and memories, you can see me playing an instrument, either in outside in an outside sitting ceremony, or you might see a picture of me in a marching band formation, like the one that I showed at the beginning. And then we've done other things like recorded items, but so we set this up and made a recording of a different version of the Star Spangled Banner, and recorded that for a Veterans Day ceremony at one point. I was a featured hometown hero once at a Minnesota Wild game. That is the gentleman next to me on the left who's saying the national anthem. And so there's also a small hockey player from a different local team that goes to support that too. So that was a really cool time. Also, if you're ever in Minnesota, I don't know how this happened, but they needed pictures for people for different veterans memorials around the state. And one point I helped gather some pictures, because that's what we did in the National Guard, was we took photography for different events. But I ended up becoming, you can see here, a 6-foot statue up in Bemidji, Minnesota, where they have their Veterans Memorial. So I'm up and sketched in stone there. If you ever come visit, it's a nice little vacation spot, and you can see my statue. I'm trying to, I mean, there's just so many stories to tell, so I don't really have much more, except for that one that I wanted to share about my late friend Amy. But I really enjoyed my time serving others during, usually it was World War II and then Vietnam veterans. And so we were able to bring a lot of joy to service members when a lot of their memories were of, negative times. And so the music is what I think is one of the only positives about the military. So it was such a great job. And yeah, I was really, really proud to serve for so many years. And so I have a plaque from the state that commences my 20 years of service. I have a lot of other awards too. Here's my ribbon rack, different medals that I have gotten throughout my career. But you know, the older you get, the more you realize that that stuff doesn't matter really. It's just the little things. So
Yeah, I hear you. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for telling your story. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. I guess I want to open it up to questions if you don't mind from anybody else who's been on listening. David, Tony, see who else do we have? We have Moshe, who came in a little bit later.
Though it would have been cool to be in the Marine Corps band. Little slide in there. I have a buddy that was in the Marine Corps band, and he's got some interesting stories too. So I didn't know some of the musicians, and maybe I don't know if this happens in the Army or not. Some of the musicians, they go select them just based off of the music playing. They have a kind of a different course through the Marine Corps. So I don't know if they do that.
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we automatically at the time before they made it so that if you had a college degree, you were automatically E4. But all the band members at one point all started off as a E4, and we all got. A lot of us got special skills bonuses because we do have to pass an audition and you have to be at a certain level. And if you get to your advanced course and you don't pass your audition, then you don't make it to your active duty station and you get reassigned to a different job altogether.
Interesting. Yeah.
Going back to Bob's question earlier about was she from Norfolk? And you notice pronunciation. I knew right away when she pronounced that she wasn't from Norfolk. So I was stationed there very, very long time. So I hear Norfolk. I was like, "You're not from there, are you?"
Yes.
I'm very familiar with Little Creek. I was stationed there a couple of times. I used to work with the SEALs. Great base, one of my favorite bases to be at, and I always enjoyed watching the bands practice in the morning while we were out PTing.
Oh yeah, we were out on that PT field a lot doing marching band, and then and McDonald's is still there too.
Actually, they replaced it with a Wendy's a couple of years ago.
What?
Yeah, I like I said, I left the area in 21 when I retired. But yeah, they replaced that McDonald's with a Wendy's, which I don't know which was better or not, but especially when there's so many good places to eat right off base, and
Yeah.
Waffle House, which was a favorite of ours.
Oh yeah, I love the fresh seafood out there. And then, you know, in Alabama, we were close to the Panhandle, so that was also really great. I forgot, I wanted to show you my tattoo. So I have a picture of my piccolo on my arm. It's kind of hard to see. And then I also have the notes to the national anthem wrapped around my arm.
Oh,
And
very
then a
cool.
line of lyrics on the shoulder here. So it's a tribute to my service. And so it's kind of a cool tattoo, and it's a cool story when I run into people. And usually it's a good conversation starter, and I end up running into a lot of veterans, and then I'm able to ask them about their service too. So
Well, you definitely don't see too many tats of piccolos, so that's unique.
no.
I love it. I love it.
I'm still performing a lot, even though I'm retired. I'm actually going to the UK here in June with my Civic Wind Band. So we're going to be performing all over London and Scotland. So pretty excited about that. Wanted to keep playing at a high level, and so
Super.
it's a good way to keep busy.
Yes. Well, one of the things that I always like to ask folks is, what would you say I think you already stated it in your presentation and telling of your story, but what would you say your military experience has done to shape your life after the military?
I mean, it was such a big part of your life, and that you kind of like
Mhm.
don't really realize that until you retire or you get to the end of your career. You make so many lifelong friends. I mean, everybody says that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of my best friends are are still serving or are just retiring as well. And then, you know, I still keep in touch with active duty friends of mine from 17, 18, 19 years ago that that we just had, you just have a bond for the rest of your life with some of these people, and just some really great stories to remember. And it's definitely something that unless you've served, you don't quite understand how awesome it is to just have those connections and experiences with people. And also just the professional doors that it's opened for me. Obviously, I went in thinking I was going to be a band director in college, and then I came out and listing in the military. My dad was like, "Why did we pay for you to go to college if you were just going to join the military?" But I ended up using my GI Bill to get my master's degree in Minnesota. And that's also helped open doors for leadership positions in the government, and just never thinking that service was going to be such a big part of my life. But over time it has, and it's so much more rewarding than I think working for another corporation or something like that. So I do recruit for my agency. And so I love helping out, especially veterans, get into the federal government and get a career and just have that security. And then also supporting different nonprofits throughout, and helping veterans maybe get employment or at least help them through some of that stuff. We have a lot of homeless veteran nonprofits and other types of groups in Minnesota that it's nice to get involved
Absolutely.
in.
Well, great. Thank you again so much, Jennifer. You know, I do want to mention that this is recorded. We will be sharing the link with you so that you can have this as a way to share your story with others if you want. And we would definitely hope that you would recommend this to other veterans to be able to say this is a platform where you can get, you know, tell your story and have let other folks be able to you know, value what your experience was. And you know, it's because not everybody has the same kind of experience. You know, there's a lot of folks out there. When I tell them I'm a 24-year veteran, they ask about combat and war, and there's a lot of special branches. I was medical service, so it's like, no, I was never in harm's way. And you know, there's probably a lot of folks in the JAG Corps that would say the same thing, you know, but there's but it's still all part of the experience, all part of the military. It's part of what needs to be there to support the military, and I thank you for that. So yes, and I don't know if you were able to put your contact info in the chat as well, Jennifer. That would be great if you could. And again, I encourage folks to make connections outside of here, because you know, I believe in telling the stories. I believe in connections. You know, we made connections when we were in service, but we can make connections, new connections with fellow veterans here too. So,
Well,
any other?
Dennis,
Yes.
well, I will say this, I appreciate what you are doing. I think especially the fallen um, service members
Yes.
that you know, I've told you this story before. When my dad trained guys for the Normandy invasion, and they were landing uh, gliders being pulled by DC-3s behind enemy lines. 80% of his troops were killed the very first day. They were the victims that had to sacrifice their lives to win that war. So this is what we forget a lot, is what people are paying as a sacrifice, whether they live through it or don't live through it. It's a sacrifice.
Right.
You know, World War II veterans, I've found that very few of them would talk about their service, their time in the service. They, you know,
Right.
they just wouldn't talk about it.
No, I
And,
agree.
you know, really, as my my daughter says, getting people to talk about the pluses and the minuses of their life's experiences are so vitally important to any human being. And so much of the time in the military has been anxious times, I guess I
Right.
might even say.
Right.
So thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Moshe, I know you joined in later. I was, what are your thoughts here about our speaker for today? And
First of all, I'm having dental work, God willing, dental work done on Tuesday, but I looked at the music on her arms and I really thought it was a blouse, like inside what she had. Found out, of course, today I was wrong, but I can't say how impressed I was by that. Besides, of course, your history, but just the creativity of what you included. It's just amazing.
Moshe, how are you feeling?
If I can see the dentist on Tuesday, I hope to feel better. The Tylenol is starting to take an effect.
Okay, good. Good. All right. Yeah. Well, we all go through daily lives, right? And there's pluses and minuses in what we experience on a daily basis. And learning the most important part of our life's experiences is just being able to talk about it. And Jennifer, thank you so much for you speaking out and tell us some of your experiences. Not everything was pleasurable, but thank God you were in a field that other people enjoy.
yes,
Right?
yes, absolutely. So we are closing in on the top of the hour, and I just basically wanted to, I don't know that we have Tony or David. I know Duke had to drop off. I don't know if we have you on our calendar yet for being our featured speakers. I don't want to put any pressure on you, but I do want to invite you, if you want to get in the schedule here and to invite others if you find that this is valuable, and I hope you do. So with that, I just wanted to, I guess we'll wrap up a few minutes early, give you a few minutes of your day back. And again, to thank you all. And on this Memorial Day weekend, that we remember our fallen comrades. And I definitely want to be able to, when you get back from your trips, to talk about your friend, and certainly allowing you or inviting you rather to pay tribute to her specifically, and possibly to introduce us to her family so that we may be able to do for her what we're doing for Machinist Mate First Class Alfonso Amos and his family. So I won't say a happy Memorial Day, but I would say a reverential Memorial Day weekend to you all, and thank you for your service. And I had somebody say to me, because I always struggled with how to respond to that, and they gave a suggestion that I think is good, and that is, and I've done it a couple of times, and it kind of changes the dynamic of it. And I look back at the person who tells me that, and I look them square in the face, and without and to honestly say, you were worth it. Because really, that's that's really what it's all about, is that our service is for the people here in this country. And thank you all for yours. So Bob, I guess I'll say farewell, and we'll be in touch soon, and hopefully we'll see you all, or most of you who can be here, next week.
Thank you for your words of wisdom. We all
right.
need it.
All right.
Thanks again.
Hopefully meaningful Memorial weekend.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Bye all.
Bye all.